We're going to start today's video with a brief recap of what we talked about in the last one. So just to go over, we talked about how to start your team. Again, I'm going to have a whole playlist of this at the end, but basically, you want to go over your motivations for wanting to start a team, figure out how you're going to finance that team, and then make sure you have the infrastructure in place by appointing a team manager, a treasurer, people to do data analytics, card acquisitions, and of course players themselves who in these early stages are probably your friends or buddies and will also be occupying these various roles. Now, next step you want to do if you want to have a successful TCG team, and this isn't just for TCG teams either, you can use this for any kind of team that isn't necessarily a sport related team. But if you want to have more success, you got to learn how to market your team. So, this is going to be the subject for today's video. A lot of people get it mistaken. Your team does not have to be great in order to market your team. They just have to be decent, right? You can't market your team and then every tournament you go to, you guys are occupying place 300 to 308. You have to at least, be decent. But you don't have to be national champ, world champ, regional champ. As I mentioned in the first one, group success. If you have a top 16 photo and like 4 or 5 of your guys are in there, great job. You can market your team. So that's what you really want to be on. But even if you do not even have tournament success, you could still market your team. What's the purpose of marketing your team? Well, it's simple. You have increased sponsorship opportunity. You have opportunities. And the other reason why you want to market your team is to insulate yourself from the success of the game. So let me explain what I mean by this, because you see this in esports teams all the time, but not necessarily in TCG teams or TCG channels and stuff like that. If you look at an esports organization, they're not locked only to the game that they play, usually the successful ones, right? So if the game they are playing stops being popular, or if the game that they're playing dies, they still have other things to do. TCGs are more volatile than even esports are to a certain degree, right? Unless you're one of the established games, Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, your game is going to go through violent ebbs and flows of popularity, and you want to make sure that no matter what the game is doing, your team is going to be popping. The other thing that you want to do is that if the game dies and your team decides to move on somewhere else, they already have the following necessary to move on to the next game or to build up from the next venture, even if it's not a game. So by marketing your team as your team and not the game first and then the team, you will be able to insulate yourself from the game in that sense. All right, so in order to do this, we need a couple of things. First, player contracts. This might seem crazy, but once you get to this level where you're marketing your team, you're talking about possibly real money, or at least, decent money. At that point, you got to protect all parties involved. I mentioned in the first video how going from your group of friends to an actual organized team was equivalent to talking to a girl with no strings attached to her, to claiming her and making her your girlfriend. Once you go into marketing your team and trying to actually do these things I spoke about, increase sponsorships, insulate yourself in the game, blah, 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 player contracts are necessary because it's equivalent of going from girlfriend to wife. So, what are the benefits of player contracts? It's only benefits. There is literally only one negative I could think of with a player contract, but that negative comes from a lack of good infrastructure, which we established we need in the first video. So for the team, the benefits are that you could create rules and consequences. So you could have team rules like in a casual sense. You could be like, hey, when you join our team, our rules are X, Y, Z, ABC. But there's no real consequence for breaking those rules other than you get kicked off the team. And that might be the goal for that person to begin with. So the only thing you're doing is helping them out. Also, you get non-compete clauses. So what this means is that if the player does decide to break a rule that will cause them to get terminated, there's going to be a period of time before they're allowed to join another team. And if they do so ahead of time, then there could be consequences for that. Let's see. NDAs. Now, I don't mean like how entertainers make girls sign NDAs. This is more so keeping teams, technologies, and secrets within the team. I've seen this happen quite a few times where this wasn't followed because it was a more casual organization. There was no consequences to doing this. But you'll see a team show up with their super secret tech deck, and then there will be some random dude who is a friend of a member of the team with the deck who has a deck, and then some other random dude that's a friend of that friend who has the deck. And suddenly your team ends up losing a game to one of these people because they have your deck, and for some reason, they caught you at that time. Or the information get leaked to another team because someone is talking, and then they formulate a strategy to deal with the deck that you're bringing to the event. And then they do you dirty. That happens because there was no NDA involved for what is being brewed up by the team, and there's no consequences really to doing that other than getting kicked off the team, which case they just go and join another team because there's no non-compete clauses. So you want to have these things in there as a team to protect yourself, and also detailed compensation. At this point, you're going to possibly be able to start paying members of the team as you start building up your image, building up your marketing, getting your sponsorships even higher. You're going to be able to start paying people. So you want to have detailed compensation in there so that they know exactly what they're getting. You know exactly what you're paying out, and then also rules for if they get terminated, what they leave with or what they leave without. For the player, is also protection. And a lot of this stuff is the same thing. Rules and consequences. So the reason why rules and consequences are important for the player is simply because this allows them to, one, know what they have to do, but two, if they're ever terminated for a reason that is outside of rules and consequences, then they have a leg to lean on as far as legal action. Similarly, compensation agreements. It's always good to know what you're getting paid, right? So you need to know how much you are going to get as far as like either flat amount or percentages, as well as what you will leave with if you are terminated. And that's the basic things that you want to have as a player. You want to just know, and also term length. Contract term length. So you don't want to have an indefinite contract, right? You might, so at this point, the players might not even be your friends, right? You might have throughout the course of your tournaments come across really good players that you want to add to your team. And so by having these things involved in a contract, you'll be able to show them, one, that you're actually professional, and two, they'll know how long the contract is for. It's not the friend group. It's not indefinite. It could be like, hey, here is uh, a 1 year contract with the team with a 1 year option, depending upon performance. And for as far as like compensation, it could be incentive based. It could be, again, percentages of revenue, things of that nature. So you want to have these things in place because now you're trying to be a little bit more professional. The other thing you have is additional roles. Those additional roles are pretty simple. They are social media manager and, man, I wish I could spell. New keyboard, sorry guys. And also content creation. So in the case of social media manager, that should be fairly straightforward. They're going to be doing the team's IG, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. So and they're going to post on these real quick, multiple times a day. So what you want to do is make, even if it's like insignificant posts, you want to post the team multiple times a day on these various platforms so that they're constantly in the eyes of people and it runs up the algorithm, make more people see your team and so forth. Once you get this popping, you can start redirecting people to your content creation, right? So in the case of content creation, you need YouTube, because you can't get away without it, streaming, and TikTok. And I know some people may not really love TikTok, but TikTok is extremely important because along with the social media platforms, TikTok is a great way to funnel people towards your YouTube and your streaming, where you get your money. You can make money on TikTok. I don't, especially if you're trying to sell merch, right? So let's just put that there in the parentheses because it's something that I haven't really thought about before I started really typing this out right here. But yeah, TikTok is good for like selling merch and things like that. So you could get money off of that. And then again, you can funnel people towards the YouTube and the streaming the same way that your social media will also be funneling people towards the YouTube and the streaming. And then these two groups is going to work together really closely because they're also going to be repurposing, at least the content creator, the YouTube and the streaming, to TikToks and Instagram Reels, Facebook short videos, snaps on Snapchat to help push the look of the team. All right, so we're going to get into the content creation part of it. So you want a team YouTube channel. You're going to want to avoid individual YouTubes at this point, right? So you want a team YouTube where you're going to be posting a variety of content. Reason why you want a variety of content, because you're not trying to get the same audience you would have got anyway. You're trying to expand your audience beyond just the people who also play in tournaments, right? So what we have seen come up besides your typical deck profiles, tournament reports, gameplay videos is that we've seen a rise in vlogs for tournaments. This is actually pretty cool. Like, I've seen a couple of videos of like Pokemon channels and Yu-Gi-Oh channels where it would just be regular people, no one who is super like great or winning every week or whatever, and they're showing themselves getting ready for the tournament, going to the locals, playing their rounds. They're doing like a brief deck profile during the vlog, going, "Hey, today I decided to bring Black Bardock to our Fusion World locals, and I'm trying out this new spice, and it's using this right here, ha ha ha." And then they play the rounds and they show off the store and they show the pains on their face when they lose and the joy on their face when they win, stuff like that to make people more engaged with the person or the team over the game. Another thing that has come up besides vlogs is React content. So this is a little harder to do in TCGs, but they do exist where you get to, react to controversies that come up within the game, react to other people's gameplay, react to, various different things. And again, you're doing this to expand your reach. And then there was one more type of content. It'll probably come back to me as I'm going through this. But you just want to have a variety of these things, right? You don't want to just be locked to the same old, same old. Oh, I know what it is. Unique. And I'm going to put unique in parentheses because nothing is truly unique anymore. But unique offerings, right? So unique offerings might be stuff like low tier hero, where you, again, it's kind of an add-on to the vlog type of thing, where you do a series of you taking a known to be bad deck, making the changes and trying to win at locals, or you might do something along the lines like Nem Nem did, where he took a starter deck to pro over time. So this was a really cool deck series that he did where he took a Yu-Gi-Oh starter deck, and then he had a budget that he could spend each week, but it couldn't be on singles. It had to be on sealed product, and also that budget had to include sleeves and deck box. And then he would go each week, and he was not allowed to trade for cards, but he was allowed to use cards from his prize pack to upgrade a deck. These are the kind of ideas that, don't get used a lot, that can be used a lot to help boost your team's notoriety. Again, give you variety of things. So now that you have your variety of content, as far as YouTube is concerned, the next thing you want to concern yourself with is streaming. Notice I didn't say Twitch. It doesn't have to be Twitch. It could be Twitch, but it doesn't have to be Twitch. Twitch is probably the hardest to discover, but you want to do it on whatever platform you want to do it to, and you want to stream on TikTok at the same time. The reason why you want to do this is, again, it's easier usually to blow up on TikTok. It's easier for someone who already had you in their algorithm to discover that you're live on TikTok. And then you can move them from being live on TikTok over to being live, to seeing your live on whatever streaming platform or choice that you're doing. You want to have individual channels at this point. Yeah, you want to have individual streaming channels at this point. Sorry for the break, but the reason being that you want these individual streaming channels is you want to, one, test out who is actually good for it, right? Because not everybody is charismatic in front of the camera. Look at me, for instance. I'm trash. But the point is, you want to have these individuals out there and you want to make sure that you see who is going to be doing well. But also, you want to collab with each other. So that way you can cross pollinate your following. Man, I'm terrible at spelling. But basically the idea of it is that if someone has, like, let's say 100 followers and someone has 2, then the one with the 100 followers will collab with the one with the 2, and hopefully some of those followers will also go over to the one with the 2. And then if someone has, 300 followers and someone else has, 100, he could collab with the one with the 100 and they could both collab with the one with the 2, and everybody just gets built up. And so you could do these collabs, create a cross audience, even there's something in business called squeezing the fruit, right? So sometimes you just get one good squeeze out of it. That's having just one channel. And then you let it go. But good business squeezes the fruit multiple times. So you want to get multiple subs or whatever it is from the same person. Whether it's subs, whether it's memberships, whatever, super chats, you want to get them all from the same person. So if someone follows this person, they got money and they're willing to spend on that person, you can also convince them to spend on everybody else. That's how you squeeze the fruit multiple times. And then with the streaming, of course, we spoke about this again several times. We want to repurpose our streaming into short form content and also into YouTube videos. Another thing you want to do with your short form content is, if possible, clip farm. So this is not something you want to do intentionally, but something that you have to be comfortable with having happen, right? So what is clip farming? Clip farming is grabbing funny or embarrassing moments for the sake of content, right? So this is usually faked a lot of times nowadays. In the beginning, you're not going to be able to fake it because you're just not really trained to do that kind of stuff. But what you can do is just make sure that you're comfortable in front of make sure you are comfortable with the camera rolling, because if you do that, you're eventually going to do something stupid that then could be clipped to then be made into content. So that's the other thing. And then the last thing about this is that you need full team participation. This is the hard part, right? Usually there's always people who are too shy to go on camera. They don't need to be up there all the time, but they're going to need to be able to participate at some level, right? So even if they just come through there for a few minutes, but they are the ones who are managing the stream or the ones that are doing something involving the stream, that'll be great. Doing that, of course, again, opens you up to greater sponsorship opportunities because people are going to see your following grow. They're going to see people viewing you, and then they're going to offer you these sponsorships. And then again, with full team participation could then add up to personal opportunities for your team members. This is something that only happens if you get like massive, right? But the point is, maybe the person who is the most charismatic might get invited to collab with the even bigger person. So they go over to that even bigger person, they collab with them, they gain notoriety, which only shines back onto the team. And then people will follow that person, follow from that larger streamer to your teammate, who then would bring those people over to the rest of the team. And that's what you kind of want to do. You want to get everybody going. Again, the old saying is, rising tides raise all boats, which is what we want to be on. So, if you do this successfully enough, you're going to run into part 3 of the discussion, which we're going to make a tab for right now, which is creating a content org. Most people will never get to this point if you're playing like a card game, but there is a few examples of this, or at least a few pretty decent teams who got very close to doing this, and we'll discuss those in the next video. So I'll catch you again next time. This is VG Time signing out.